Hi there, my name's Greg. I've been learning about Azure Kubernetes Service over the past 6 months or so, and in the process, myself and some colleagues have come across some issues relating to costs that have given us some shocking surprises around many $1,000s worth of consumption in Azure that has caused us some issues, and I wanted to just take 5-10 minutes maybe to talk about some of those findings in order to share those with my own colleagues, with our partner ecosystem, and others out there who might be getting started using Azure Kubernetes, just to position some of the cost aspects on your Kubernetes journey to learn about using that in Azure in a manner that is going to be best fit for your workloads and your requirements so that you can learn about it and start using it as well. So the first thing about Kubernetes is the appropriate VM family. By default, the VM family that is used, you can see here listed, is the standard DS2v2. Azure does have the advantage of having the control plane be free, but the nodes that are going to be deployed as a part of a VM scale set, and that scale set is what is used to handle the node pools. So the number of nodes that will exist in the node pool will essentially be virtual machines that are going to be running constantly 24/7, 365. So it's important that you keep in mind that those nodes, you need to appropriately size those from the get-go. And here you can see down here the cost for a standard DS2 V2 with 3 nodes is going to be about $245 a month with standard pricing. So that's a lot, and if you're just doing a training, or if you're doing some dev work, or you're setting up a demo environment, that's probably more than you're looking to spend. So this is why, as a first step, it's important to know what you're using it for in order for you to appropriately select those machines and the node count. Node count can always be turned up. You can add other node pools after you get things going, but do keep in mind that once you create your cluster, this is going to be running. So as a singular alternative, as I mentioned, start small, smaller on your node pools. Depending on what you're doing here, you can see I've costed out, essentially changed the default node size to a standard B2S, meaning that's a burstable instance, and with 2 vCPUs and 4 gigabytes of memory. So it's not a whole lot, but if you're just doing some things like deploying some examples that are on GitHub, some of those types of things, it's going to be ample for your needs. And you can always scale up the nodes afterwards, and if you need a beefier node pool, you can always add that on later. So here, one node at a standard B2S is going to be about $28 a month. Much more manageable to sell that to your boss or your company, and be actually using Azure AKS to learn with. So the next thing, obviously, the number of nodes are each individual virtual machines that are running under the hood. So starting and stopping your cluster is very important as well. Depending on what you're using it for, keep in mind that if you just create a cluster and leave it, it's going to be running all year round. So this is a relatively new feature that has come into public availability, where you have the ability to start and stop your cluster just using the Azure command. You can see the Azure CLI command, AZAKS stop, AZAKS start, and AZAKS show to show the status. And you know, this is something that that I've been sharing with my colleagues frequently lately, just to say, do everything that you need. Use what you need, scale it up, scale it down, play with it, learn about it. But definitely when you're finished at the end of the day, or before the weekend, depending on what your use is, definitely shut it down, because that's a lot of virtual machine hours that you're clocking if it is just for learning or testing purposes and nothing is happening on there. Next one is spot instances in node pools. This one is actually something that I learned about in the introduction to AKS course from Microsoft, which is very interesting. I would definitely recommend it. I believe it's one of the final sections in that training course, where they talk about cost optimization using spot instances. This is something a colleague of mine we were just testing this out, and it's also now in public availability or generally available. So this is super cool, just being able to create a node pool that leverages spot instances so that you can essentially have your standard, DS2 or other or F family of VMs running a node, and you can use spot instances at 80 to 90% cost reduction with variable pricing that are going to be used to handle some of the other load. Once again, this isn't reliable as far as running production workloads in a reliable manner, but as I mentioned at the beginning, I believe that a lot of the uses for this is learning, development, testing. So spot instances are perfect for that. We might not be able to get access to those resources if there's no spot instance resource availability, but at the same time, it's a great opportunity for us to learn with. So one thing to point out here is the 3 additional tags in the node pool creation process that you're going to need to specify that the node pool is a spot node pool. Priority is saying this is a spot node pool. Eviction policy delete is going to delete those nodes from the node pool entirely if they get evicted. You can obviously just deallocate that, but considering we're talking about AKS, and it really should have the pods being deployed elsewhere, and you shouldn't, if you're using some form of persistence volume, it shouldn't be on the node anyways. And then the spot max price -1 is just saying that it's not going to evict the node right away if the price starts to go up a little bit. You can set a max price as the maximum price that you want. If you put it -1, the price is going to fluctuate, so you'll get essentially the best price that's available for spot instances at that particular time. Next one. And this is kind of more of a gotcha. Watch out for log analytics running away spending on, as you can see here in this screenshot, this particular deployment using the portal and the ARM template does have container monitoring enabled. Container monitoring can be quite interesting just for using those tools that are built into the portal to look at metrics, to look at what's running, and to be diagnosing or troubleshooting things in log analytics. But as you can see here, it's creating a new default resource group with a crazy UUID name in there, and that's something that you might not be aware of depending on how large the subscription that you're using. That might get lost, and if it gets lost and you're having issues deploying your applications and there's errors that are building up, the crash loop backoff is essentially going to continue to restart those pods. You're going to get your logs that are filling up, and we saw a couple of situations where a failed deployment that was left because it wasn't working. It ran up a bill of over $500 in a couple of days just in logs. So be aware of that. It's definitely worth trying out. The container monitoring, container insights, I think is quite interesting. But be sure to create and specify creating your own resource group for this that you know the name of, that's in alignment with your cluster, or stick the log analytics workspace in your cluster resource group so that everything is going to be together and that you can see those resources that are related to the cluster together. And that is all. I hope you enjoyed that. Have a great day.